Left to die. Her husband abandoned her in the woods, but someone else was watching. The silence before the storm. Lauren Carter had always been a woman of grace, precision, and quiet strength. At 36, she had built a name for herself as a freelance event designer in Portland. Small but stylish weddings, corporate retreats, and those elusive Pinterest-worthy parties that looked effortless but required hours of labor and love. She didn't have a massive following online, but the people who hired her trusted her eye, her honesty, and her heart. Her marriage, on the surface, was much the same: tasteful, composed, seemingly solid. Craig worked in finance, spent hours at his desk, and prided himself on being the responsible one. He wasn't cruel, not at first. If you asked friends, they would say, "He's a bit stiff, but he treats Lauren well." But life, as Lauren had learned too well, doesn't always crack apart in earthquakes. Sometimes it erodes, quietly, invisibly, until one day you realize you're standing on a cliff that's no longer there. 3 years ago, a spinal infection left Lauren partially paralyzed from the waist down. It had started with back pain she thought was from carrying too many crates during a wedding setup. By the time the doctors realized what was wrong, permanent nerve damage had taken root. She went from running 10-hour events to relearning how to navigate her own kitchen in a wheelchair. At first, Craig had been patient, or maybe just stunned. He visited her in the hospital. He brought takeout. He even ordered a ramp for the front steps. But patience isn't love. Not really. Lauren noticed the shift slowly. The way he flinched when she asked for help, transferring from chair to bed. The way he never looked at her the same. The absence of touch. The "I'll be home late" texts that grew more frequent, more vague. She wanted to believe it was stress. Who wouldn't? Then came the control. He handled the insurance forms, then the bank account. "So you don't have to worry about it," he said. "Just focus on getting better." Then he took over their shared calendar, their mortgage, even communication with her clients. It was so gradual, so logical, until one day she realized she hadn't had a password to anything in 6 months. And yet, she clung to hope, because hope in grief is as addictive as painkillers. One crisp October morning, Craig brought home a steaming cup of chai and set it gently on her tray. "We should get out of the city this weekend," he said, his tone unusually light. "Just the two of us." Lauren blinked, surprised. "Really?" He smiled, tight-lipped. "You love fall. I thought we'd drive up to Pine Hollow, do some leaf peeping, maybe stay overnight." A memory flickered. Their second anniversary, driving through winding trails, her head against the window. Craig's hand warm on her thigh. She nodded. "That sounds nice." He packed the car himself, even loaded her wheelchair without being asked. For a moment, Lauren thought maybe this was a turning point, an apology wrapped in a weekend. They drove for over an hour. Forest thick with gold and rust-red trees blurred past the window. Lauren tried not to notice how little Craig spoke. She tried not to feel the dread bubbling under her ribs. "Is there a cabin?" she asked eventually. "Something like that," he murmured. They turned off the main road, onto gravel, then dirt, then something barely a trail. Her stomach tightened. "Craig, this doesn't look like a resort." He didn't answer, just kept driving until they reached a clearing surrounded by trees, silence pressing in like fog. No houses, no signs. He put the car in park. What are we doing here? Lauren's voice trembled. Craig? He opened the door, walked to the back, and pulled out the wheelchair. Then her backpack, then a small duffel. It wasn't until he leaned over and began unbuckling her seatbelt that she realized this wasn't a picnic. You're scaring me, she whispered. He didn't meet her eyes. You'll be fine, he said, his voice flat. There's food, water, a flashlight. You have your phone. Her breath caught. What are you talking about? I can't do this anymore, he muttered, lifting her into the chair like she was weightless. You used to be strong, Lauren. Now you're stuck, and I'm stuck with you. Tears welled in her eyes, her voice barely audible. Craig, please. I know it's been hard, but he cut her off. This isn't hard. This is hopeless. And with that, he shoved the duffel into her lap, turned back toward the car, and got in. No, Craig. Don't leave me here, she screamed. I can't get back by myself. Please. But the engine started. He reversed. The tires kicked up dust and leaves. And then he was gone. The forest swallowed the sound of his car like it had never been there. Lauren sat in her wheelchair, alone in the clearing, heart pounding so loud it drowned the birds. Her fingers trembled as she opened the duffel. 2 bottles of water, a granola bar, a flashlight, and a cheap emergency blanket. No phone charger, no compass, no map. Her phone showed 18% battery and 1 bar of signal. She tried calling 911. The call dropped. She tried texting her sister. Emergency. Craig left me in the woods. Please help. Near Pine Hollow. Message failed to send. She stared at the screen. Her hands shook. Then, in the silence, she heard something. A branch snapping. Leaves crunching. She whipped around, flashlight in hand, trying to steady her breathing. Hello? She called out. Is someone there? The rustling stopped. Then a man's voice, steady, low. I won't hurt you. From the trees stepped a man in his late 30s, dressed in muted forest green. He moved carefully, hands raised, like approaching a deer. I'm Noah, he said. I work fire patrol in this area. I saw your car drive in from the ridge. I had a drone up monitoring fire risks. I thought something was off, so I hiked in. Lauren stared at him, stunned. A drone? She echoed, voice cracking. Thermal camera, he explained gently. I saw 1 heat signature left behind. I thought maybe someone was injured. He stepped closer, kneeling down. You okay? She choked back a sob. My husband left me here, said I was a burden. I don't know where I am. I can't walk. Please, don't leave me. I won't, he said firmly. I promise. You're not alone anymore. And just like that, something shifted. Not just the fear, not just the panic, but the story. It was no longer a tragedy unfolding in silence. Someone had seen, someone had heard, and someone had stayed. A stranger who stayed. Noah Walker had always trusted his instincts. It had kept him alive through 7 years as a wilderness firefighter, navigating through blazes that swallowed entire forests. It was why he left the city, moved to a cabin near Pine Hollow, and took a quiet job with the Forest Service as a fire patrol tech. The quiet suited him. So did the solitude. But tonight, standing in a dark forest clearing, staring at a woman abandoned in a wheelchair, with fear in her eyes and a broken phone in her hand, he knew his instincts had been right again. She wasn't lost. She had been left. I don't know what to do, Lauren whispered, clutching the emergency blanket to her chest. I can't stay out here all night. You won't, Noah said. We're about 1.5 miles from the ranger station. I've got a four-wheeler stashed at the trailhead, but the terrain isn't great for a wheelchair. Do you mind if I carry you? Her mouth opened to protest, but she stopped. Her pride warred with her reality. She'd spent so long trying to do everything herself, to not ask, to not need. But this wasn't about dignity anymore. This was about survival. Lauren nodded. Noah moved slowly, lifting her with practiced care. Not awkward, not clinical, just human. He secured the duffel on his back, shifted her gently into his arms, and started walking. The night was quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the sound of his boots against the earth. Every now and then, he'd glance down at her. You warm enough? She nodded. It's okay. Your jacket helps. You've been out here long? Just an hour. Maybe less. Her voice cracked. Feels longer. They said nothing more until they reached a ridge. Below, barely visible through the trees, a faint red light blinked. Noah's four-wheeler. How did you even see us from up there? She asked, still gripping his arm. I fly drones every night, part of the early fire detection system. Tracks heat signatures. I saw a car drive in, then leave. Only one signature stayed behind. He looked at her. Yours. Lauren blinked. So you saw me? Through a screen? I saw something that didn't make sense, and I didn't like the feeling it gave me. He set her gently on a large fallen log, then pulled the four-wheeler closer. Once secured, he helped her onto the seat, making sure she was balanced before strapping the wheelchair on the back. He checked her twice, then again. You sure you're okay? I think so, she said. Just scared and angry, mostly angry. He started the engine. That's a good sign. It means you're still fighting. The drive to the station was bumpy, but fast. When they arrived, he helped her inside the small but well-equipped ranger outpost, an old wooden building with a radio tower, kitchenette, and a narrow cot in the back. Lauren looked around, unsure what to do with her body, her fear, her shame. She hated feeling helpless, but Noah didn't treat her like she was broken. He handed her a glass of water, gave her a soft blanket, then, quietly, without asking, started a fire in the wood stove. Do you want me to call someone? He asked after a while. I don't know who. No family. My parents are gone. My sister lives in Chicago. We're not close. Friends? She shook her head. Most drifted away after the accident. I was the organizer, the doer. When I stopped showing up, they did too. What about the police? Her fingers tightened around the glass. Craig's going to lie. He'll say I got out of the car myself, that we fought and I told him to leave. He's been preparing for this. He took control of everything slowly. Bank accounts, my business, my social media. Noah leaned back in his chair. So let's get ahead of it. Lauren looked up. What do you mean? I'll help you tell your story first. File a report. Document everything. He might be good at controlling the narrative, but the truth is a stubborn thing. For the first time in hours, Lauren felt her breathing slow. The heat from the stove crept into her bones. The smell of pine and smoke grounded her. Why are you helping me? She asked, eyes narrowing. Noah didn't flinch. Because you needed help. Because someone saw what he did. And because I've seen enough cruelty in my life to know when it's time to step in. She studied him. The calloused hands, the quiet eyes, the calmness. You talk like someone who's seen war. I have, he said simply. There was silence between them. Not awkward, just honest. I don't know what comes next, Lauren said quietly. Everything I thought I had is gone. Noah met her gaze. Then maybe it's time to build something new. And somehow, those words didn't sound cliché. They sounded like a beginning. The man who walked through fire. Lauren was already asleep when the storm rolled in. She had dozed off on the small cot in the ranger station, the warmth of the fire and the soft creak of the cabin easing her into the first real sleep she'd had in weeks. Noah didn't wake her. He simply added a log to the fire and sat nearby with a thermos of coffee, listening to the steady beat of rain on the roof. He hadn't intended to tell her about his past, but she'd asked. And when she looked at him, really looked at him, it had felt like she saw more than the quiet ranger. She saw the man underneath. And now, with the cabin quiet and his thoughts loud, he let his mind drift backward into the flames. 10 years ago, Noah Walker had been someone else entirely, a hotshot, elite, the kind of guy who ran toward burning forests when everyone else ran the other way. He had joined the Federal Fire Response Unit right out of the Navy, quick on his feet, calm under pressure, always the first in, last out. He had also been married once. Her name was Caroline. She had been soft-spoken, a veterinary tech who loved painting wildflowers in her spare time. She used to tuck sketches into his gear before deployments, little notes with scribbled wild daisies or hummingbirds, and a reminder to come home safe. But fire doesn't care about love. It was during a wildfire in California's Trinity Alps. The blaze had jumped containment lines. They'd lost radio contact with the main unit. Noah had led his crew through a ravine to escape an encroaching firewall. They all made it out, except one. Ty, the youngest on the crew, had doubled back for his water pack and never returned. Noah never forgave himself for letting him go alone. He carried the guilt like a second spine. When he got back home, he found that Caroline, sweet, loyal Caroline, had grown tired of waiting for a man who might never return. "I love you," she had whispered, "but I can't keep living half a life." She left him a note, and her wedding ring on the nightstand. Noah stayed in that apartment for another month, just to prove to himself that heartbreak didn't kill you. Then one night, he packed a single duffel bag and drove across the country until the road ended in a forest near Pine Hollow. The fire still lived inside him, but at least here, the world was quiet enough to hear his own thoughts. Lauren stirred on the cot, pulling the blanket higher over her shoulders. Noah glanced over and stood, careful not to wake her. He stepped out onto the covered porch, the rain drizzling gently through the trees. He breathed in the scent of wet pine and cold soil. For years, this place had been his haven, his silence, his safety. And now it was hers too. Behind him, the door creaked open. Lauren wheeled out slowly, a fresh blanket over her lap, and her hair a soft mess from sleep. Her eyes still carried the weight of what had happened, but there was something steadier now beneath it, something anchoring her. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah, just thinking." "About?" Noah hesitated, then gave her a small, knowing smile. "Everything that brought me here," she nodded. "Funny how fast your life can change, right? Yesterday, I thought the biggest problem I had was a broken espresso machine." He let out a quiet chuckle. "You miss the city?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "I miss feeling like I belong somewhere, like I had a purpose. My studio, my team. It gave me a reason to wake up. What did you do? Noah asked, genuinely curious. I'm a textile designer. Or I was. She gave a soft shrug. I worked with reclaimed materials, vintage silks, recycled denim, hand-woven linens. I loved turning things people threw away into something beautiful. There was a pause. Then Noah said, That's kind of what you're doing now. She looked at him, surprised. You've been thrown away, he said gently, but you're still here, and that's already beautiful. Lauren swallowed the lump in her throat. You're not like anyone I've ever met. Noah didn't answer. Instead, he turned to the woods. The night I found you, I wasn't supposed to be flying the drone, he admitted. I'd already clocked out, but I couldn't sleep. Something was off, like a storm was coming, but not the kind you can see on radar. She said nothing, letting him speak. I lost someone once, out there. He gestured toward the dense forest. A kid on my crew. I thought I could save him, but fire moves fast. Lauren heard the catch in his voice, the crack he tried to hide. I've been carrying that night for years. Every time I hear a branch snap or smell smoke in the air, it all comes back. He turned to face her. But then I saw you, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't freeze. I moved. I acted. You saved me, she whispered. No, he said, shaking his head. You saved me. You gave me a chance to do something that mattered again. The rain softened into a drizzle. The woods were hushed. The moment hung between them, quiet, unspoken, deeply human. I think we're both more than what happened to us, Lauren said, her voice steady now. But we need to prove it, not to anyone else, just to ourselves. Noah nodded. So what comes next? I want to go back, she said. Not to him, not to the life I had, but to the truth. I want to report what happened. I want to get my business back. My voice. My name. He didn't hesitate. Then we'll make a plan. That night, they sat side by side at the old wooden table in the ranger station, drawing up a list. Contacts, financial records, old passwords she remembered. Even a few clients who might be willing to vouch for her. Every step they took was a piece of her reclaimed. Every step he took was one further from the fire that once consumed him. And neither of them said it out loud. But in that tiny station, tucked deep in the woods, they were already building something new. Together. Letters, lawyers, and locked doors. The first person Lauren called was Tessa Ward. They hadn't spoken in over a year. Not since Lauren's accident. Not since the silence grew thick and her calls went unanswered. But back then, Lauren had blamed herself, figuring Tessa, her closest collaborator and friend, had simply drifted away like everyone else. Now she wondered if Daniel had quietly pushed everyone out of her life without her even knowing. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered, cautious and clipped. Hello? Lauren took a breath. Tess, it's me. There was a pause on the line, then a sharp inhale. Lauren? Yeah. My God, Tessa said, the voice shifting instantly to something raw. I thought you were... What happened to you? It's a long story, Lauren replied. But I need your help. Please tell me you still have access to the studio archives. Yes, of course. What's going on? I need proof, Lauren said. Proof that the designs, the business, everything I built was mine before Daniel took it over. There was silence. Then, slowly, Tessa said, He said you didn't want to be involved anymore, that after the accident, you asked him to step in. Lauren's chest tightened. I never said that. He took everything, locked me out of my accounts, told clients I couldn't handle the work anymore. I didn't know how much he'd done until he left me. Left you? In the forest, Lauren said flatly. In a place with no roads, no wheelchair access, no cell signal. He told me I was a burden and drove off. Tessa gasped. That's attempted murder. I know. I'm coming, Tessa said at once. Where are you? I'm safe, with someone I trust. But what I need right now is access. Can you email me the original contracts, design files, emails with clients? Anything with my name on it? Give me an hour. Lauren let out a shaky breath. Thank you. No, Laure, Tessa said, her voice firm. Thank you for still being alive. By the time the first files came through, Noah had set up his laptop on the ranger station's kitchen table, surrounded by scraps of paper and a freshly drawn timeline of events. Tessa had been good. She sent old pitch decks, sketches with date stamps, emails with Lauren's personal signature, even a scanned image of a magazine article from 2 years ago that listed her, not Daniel, as the company's creative director. This wasn't just a digital paper trail. It was a resurrection. But Noah knew they needed more. What's the next move? He asked. Lauren glanced at him. A lawyer? You have someone in mind? I used to, she said. But she's probably long gone. Unless... 3 days later, they rolled into a small legal clinic on the edge of Bangor, Maine. The sign outside was faded. Ryan, Birch, and Crowley. Family law and civil defense. But to Lauren, it felt like hope. Inside, the receptionist, a young man with a pink streak in his hair and a therapy dog curled under the desk, looked up and smiled. Hi, do you have an appointment? I'm looking for Madison Birch, Lauren said. She used to handle some nonprofit work for my studio back in Boston. Is she still here? The man tilted his head. One sec. He disappeared into the back, and a moment later, a door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, tailored navy blazer, salt and pepper curls, eyes that could slice through lies like a scalpel. Lauren Bennett, she said, stunned. Lauren nodded. I need help. In Madison's office, the light was soft and the furniture worn in the best way. Comfortable, not corporate. The kind of place where hard conversations were meant to happen. Lauren told her everything. Not just the forest, but the months before. The way Daniel slowly took control of her bank accounts. How her studio was restructured without her consent. How emails to clients were intercepted, rewritten. How people stopped calling. How she began to doubt her own reality. When she finished, Madison was silent for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and said, We can make this stick. Lauren blinked. Really? Financial abuse, coercive control, fabricated incompetence due to disability. I've seen it all, but we'll need to act fast. She turned to Noah. What's your role in this? I'm not a lawyer, Noah said. Just a guy with a drone and an instinct something wasn't right. That'll do, Madison smiled. Your witness statement about the night in the forest will be critical. We have emails, Lauren added, opening her inbox. Proof of ownership, original contracts, client correspondence. Madison's eyes gleamed. Then let's file a civil injunction. The next 48 hours were a blur of depositions. notarizations, and late-night strategy calls. Tessa flew in from New York with a hard drive of backup files. Madison's paralegal compiled everything into a comprehensive case file. They submitted emergency filings for a protective order preventing Daniel from accessing joint funds, a court injunction to freeze the studio's assets, and a civil suit for restitution of intellectual property and business ownership. The judge granted the first two immediately, and just like that, Daniel was locked out. At a small diner that night, Lauren sat in a booth with Noah, Tessa, and Madison, her team, her chosen family. It was surreal, empowering, terrifying. "I still can't believe he just left you," Tessa said, stirring her coffee. "That he thought he could get away with it. People like Daniel don't expect to be challenged," Madison said calmly. "They think silence equals safety." "Well," Lauren said, gripping her mug, "I'm done being silent." But not everyone was done with her, because across town, a dark SUV pulled into a gated driveway. Inside it sat Daniel Moore, and the notification on his phone made his jaw clench. Account frozen. Assets under review. Court order active. He cursed under his breath, then slammed the phone into the dash. "She's fighting back," Vanessa said from the passenger seat. Daniel glared at her. "She's going to regret it." Vanessa hesitated. "Maybe we should just walk away. She has a case now." "And?" Daniel cut her off. "No, I didn't work for 5 years building that studio just to hand it back to a cripple in a wheelchair." Vanessa flinched. Then quietly, as she stared out the window, she muttered, "Maybe you already did." The war of truth and lies. The morning began quietly at Noah's cabin. Too quietly. Lauren sat by the window, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching mist swirl through the pines. The previous night had ended with cautious hope. Plans were being made. Allies had gathered, and it felt like Daniel's web of lies was finally unraveling. But the calm shattered when Lauren's phone buzzed violently on the kitchen counter. She reached for it with a sense of dread. A flood of notifications, news alerts, texts from unknown numbers, even voicemails from reporters. Missing woman accuses husband, but a leaked video tells another story. The headline slammed into her like a punch. "Noah," she called, voice tight. He appeared from the hallway, towel still slung over his shoulder from the shower. "Turn on the TV." They didn't need to flip through many channels. Nearly every network had it on a loop. A grainy, low-quality video, clearly taken from a hidden camera, played over and over. It showed Lauren in a heated conversation with Daniel in their home months ago. Her voice was raised. She looked disoriented, upset. The footage ended with her shouting, "Maybe you'd be better off without me." The anchor's voice cut in. In this shocking leaked footage, Lauren Taylor, recently rescued after being presumed missing, appears to threaten self-harm. Daniel Taylor's lawyers claim this confirms she had a history of emotional instability, and her disappearance was not foul play, but a cry for help. Lauren stared at the screen, numb. "I never said that, like they're spinning it," she whispered. Noah grabbed the remote and muted the TV. "That footage, it's been edited, cropped. Where's the rest? Where's the part where he said I was dragging him down? That he wished he'd never married a cripple?" Lauren sank into the couch. "He's turning the world against me. I thought I was ahead, but he's winning." Across Boston, the narrative was shifting. Social media buzzed. Comments flooded in, both supportive and cruel. Some believed Lauren. Others bought into Daniel's newly minted role as the suffering husband of a mentally unstable wife. Noah paced like a caged wolf. This wasn't just some phone recording. That was a planted camera. Someone was filming you inside your own home. Lauren's heart dropped. That means this wasn't impulsive. Daniel was preparing for months. He's been building this false story all along. And then came the realization that chilled her. He knew. He always knew he'd get rid of me. Rebecca and Amir arrived an hour later. Rebecca's face was stormy. That video? Released by an anonymous source. Daniel's lawyer is denying any involvement. Typical. They leak the poison and then act innocent. Amir dropped his laptop bag on the table. I've already analyzed the footage. There are 5 jump cuts in under 90 seconds. Obvious splicing. But to the public, it looks real. He's not trying to prove he's innocent. He's just planting doubt. That's all he needs. Lauren rubbed her temples. What do we do? They're turning my pain into performance. Rebecca placed a hand on her shoulder. Then we stop playing defense. That afternoon, Lauren did something she never thought she would. She agreed to record her own message. One that told the truth. Not through rage or bitterness, but strength. She sat in front of Amir's camera. No makeup, no studio lighting. Just her, in a plain sweater, her hair tucked behind her ears. Noah stood off camera, silently watching. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm, unshaken. You've seen a clip. Now let me tell you the full story. 3 nights ago, my husband took me to the woods. He pushed my wheelchair into a clearing, handed me a flashlight, and left. What you didn't see in that video is what led up to that moment. Months of silence, cruelty, and quiet erasure. I wasn't suicidal. I was surviving. She paused. And someone was watching that night, not to hurt me, but to help me. He pulled me out of the dark. So now, I'm stepping into the light. For every woman who's been called crazy. For every disabled person made to feel invisible. For every survivor who was told, it's your fault. I see you, and I'm not going anywhere. She exhaled, voice catching at the very end. The camera stopped. The silence that followed was sacred. Noah crossed the room and knelt beside her. You just lit the match. Hours later, the video dropped. It was shared first through Amir's advocacy blog, then through dozens of disability rights groups, trauma support circles, and local news platforms. It traveled faster than Daniel's edited clip ever had. By evening, #ICU was trending. Major figures retweeted it. A local news anchor, himself the brother of a disabled woman, called the message one of the bravest things I've ever seen. The tide was turning again. But it wasn't just public opinion that was shifting. That night, while everyone was asleep, Lauren's old friend Kim sent a message. A link. No words. Just, you need to see this. Lauren clicked. It was a surveillance video, time-stamped 6 months ago. It showed Daniel in his office, sitting across from a man in a black blazer, handing over an envelope stuffed with cash. The man was Tom Harris, a private security consultant, but more shockingly, Noah's former commanding officer. Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. Noah, did you know about this? He stared at the screen in disbelief. I haven't spoken to Harris since I left the force. I didn't even know he worked private security. But Amir was already typing furiously. That's the same guy who registered the shell company that installed those hidden cameras in your home. I cross-checked it a week ago. At the time, it didn't link to Daniel. But now, Noah backed away from the screen. His expression changed. darkened. "I think I know what this means," he said, voice hoarse. Lauren turned to him, confused. "What are you talking about?" Noah looked down, his jaw clenched. "I think Daniel didn't just want to erase you," he said quietly. "I think he wanted to make it look like I was the one who took you." The counterstrike. Madison Birch didn't waste a second. Her tone was calm, but edged with urgency. She had already reviewed everything. The audio, the doctored footage, and Daniel's growing media circus. Her voice cut through the room like a razor. "He tried to destroy your credibility, manipulate the media, and frame Noah. That stops now." Lauren asked where they would begin. Madison laid out the plan without hesitation. "First, we file a privacy violation claim. Every network that aired Daniel's video without your consent will be served. That clip was manipulated. It was cut and spliced to portray you as emotionally unstable. That narrative ends today." She turned to Noah. "I'll also be filing an emergency protective petition. The footage shows enough manipulation to suggest a premeditated campaign against Lauren. And now you. If we play this right, we won't just clear your name. We'll expose Daniel's entire strategy." Amir chimed in. "I've already contacted several outlets. Some are quietly pulling the video to avoid legal backlash." Madison nodded. "Let them. That's our opening." Then she moved to the second front. Daniel's money. Daniel convinced Lauren to sign over business rights while she was sedated on medication. That's not a transfer. That's coercion. And if we can prove financial abuse during a period of cognitive vulnerability, we can freeze his access to the company account before he drains it completely. Lauren whispered, "He already changed the name on the LLC." Madison's response was immediate. "Then we go to court with a motion to reverse the transfer. It's theft in plain sight." Madison flipped to another page. "And I've hired Gwen Alvarez, forensic accountant. If Daniel moved funds offshore or tried to hide them under shell companies, she'll find every cent." Amir added, "We've also started reviewing Daniel's emails. There are traces of communications with a man named Harris, the same man in the surveillance clip, former military, possibly paid off." Lauren's voice shook slightly. "He was supposed to protect people, and now he's helping Daniel bury me." Madison didn't flinch. "Then we bring him into the light. If he's receiving payment from Daniel, we subpoena bank records. If he lied in a statement, we hit him with obstruction. Either he talks, or he falls with Daniel." Then came the final part of the plan. The media war. She paused. "Daniel got ahead of the truth. He painted you as a fragile, irrational woman. But now we take control. Lauren, we do this on your terms, your voice, your version." Lauren hesitated. "What if no one believes me?" Amir's voice was firm. "They already do. The tide's turning. People are asking why there's no medical documentation, no therapist interviews, no actual evidence that you were unstable. They're seeing through it." Madison leaned forward. "We release one video. Just one. No dramatics, no tears, just facts. You tell them what happened, in your own words. Calm, controlled, powerful." Lauren nodded. "Then let's do it." Amir pulled out a laptop. "I'll handle the visuals. Clean, minimal. All we need is her voice and the truth." Noah asked quietly, "And what about Harris?" Madison looked at him, unblinking. "We let him hang himself. If he testifies, we hit back with financial records, military background, dishonorable discharge, anything he tried to hide. And if he refuses to testify, We raised questions about why Daniel's key witness suddenly went silent. The plan was clear, swift, sharp, legal, moral, and relentless. But they still needed more. The next morning, a former assistant from Daniel's firm contacted Madison anonymously. She said she had access to documents, files Daniel kept locked in a private drive labeled Exit Strategy. Madison arranged the handoff. When the flash drive arrived, it contained emails, recordings, and financial spreadsheets. One audio file stood out. Daniel's voice, casual and cold. She's just not herself anymore. Once she's gone, I can fix the business. Vanessa and I can rebuild. But Lauren? She's not part of that future. Another clip followed. I've talked to someone who can help make it look like she wandered off. She's already unstable. Who's gonna question it? Lauren's hands trembled. She asked Madison, "Is this enough?" Madison's reply came like thunder. "It's more than enough." Amir was already uploading the files to a secure cloud server. "I'll cut together a press packet. Timeline, key evidence, the audio. With Lauren's new statement, we'll bury Daniel's version." Madison added, "We'll also file an anticipatory injunction. If Daniel tries to sue for defamation, we'll present our findings in discovery. That alone will scare off half his legal team." Lauren exhaled. "And if he doesn't back down?" Madison's eyes didn't waver. "Then we take this all the way to court. Civil, criminal, financial, and we win." Noah's voice was steady. "If we're doing this, I want to testify." Madison looked at him. "Are you ready for what that means?" Noah didn't hesitate. "I've seen good men die for less. I'm not letting another coward get away with this." Amir turned to Lauren. "You've become more than a survivor. You're the voice everyone thought they'd silenced." And Lauren's voice was soft but clear. "Then let's speak louder." That afternoon, Lauren recorded her official video statement. It was short, less than 2 minutes. No background music, no edits, just her voice and a clear message. "My name is Lauren Taylor. I was abandoned in a remote forest by my husband. I was left without my wheelchair, my medication, or a way to call for help. This was not a misunderstanding. It was planned, but I survived, and I'm not afraid anymore." By nightfall, the video had gone viral. The next morning, the backlash hit Daniel like a freight train. Half a dozen networks issued public retractions. One major outlet apologized for publishing the original clip without verifying its source. And then came the fallout. A local journalist leaked internal emails from Daniel's legal team. Discussions about how to spin Lauren's condition as emotional instability in the event that she returned. Madison's voice over the phone was sharp with satisfaction. "We've just proven not only malice, but premeditation. That's the key to punitive damages." Lauren asked, "How long until we can get him into court?" Madison replied, "Soon, but now that the media's on our side, we don't rush. We build the strongest case they've ever seen." Noah added, "Let's make sure we take down everyone involved. Not just Daniel, Harris, Vanessa, anyone who knew and stayed silent." Amir agreed. "We don't stop until there's nothing left of the lie he built." Madison finished the call with one final sentence. "You've taken your power back. Now let's make them pay for taking it in the first place." The web beneath the surface. Lauren never expected that one woman, Vanessa, would hold the final key to unraveling everything. But truth, as it often does, had a way of surfacing when least expected. After Lauren's statement went viral and media sentiment turned dramatically in her favor, Madison Birch went on the offensive. She filed discovery motions targeting not just Daniel, but also his inner circle, his assistant, his business partner, and the shadowy figure named Harris. Noah helped cross-reference Harris's identity. It turned out he wasn't just ex-military. He had been dishonorably discharged for misconduct and had been working off-grid as a private fixer for years. But more chilling was what came next. Harris had been paid by a company called Gray Rise Management, an anonymous shell company owned, as it turned out, not by Daniel, but by Vanessa's father. It was Amir who discovered the link. She's not just Daniel's girlfriend. She's the daughter of a man who specializes in hostile takeovers. Daniel didn't seduce her. He was recruited. Madison's voice sharpened. This wasn't just an affair. It was a setup. Lauren stared in disbelief. So he used me? And she used him? Amir nodded. We think her father saw your design firm as an undervalued asset. The moment you became disabled, he saw an opportunity. Vanessa inserted herself. Daniel was flattered, manipulated, and then incentivized. Lauren's heart dropped, and I thought she was just the other woman. But the deeper pain hadn't come yet. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up at Madison Birch's office. Unannounced, unaccompanied. She wanted to talk, and what she said would change everything. Vanessa didn't deny her father's involvement. In fact, she confirmed it. But then she confessed something that none of them saw coming. I never meant for any of this to go that far, she said, her voice quiet, almost hollow. My father asked me to get close to Daniel, to steer him. But I didn't know he'd abandon her in the woods. That wasn't part of the plan. Lauren didn't believe her. Not at first. But Vanessa kept talking. My father wanted control of the business. He said if Lauren were declared mentally unfit, Daniel could legally sell off her shares. I didn't question it. I was raised in this world. Manipulation is currency, and I was good at it. She paused, swallowed hard. But then I saw her. I saw Lauren. I saw how she still got up every day, how she still tried, how she worked quietly on designs that no one ever saw. She didn't disappear after the accident. Daniel erased her. Lauren couldn't speak. She felt torn between fury and pity. Vanessa continued. I tried to leave. I told Daniel I was done. But my father threatened to cut me off financially. And Daniel, he panicked. He started talking about ways to finish it. That's when he brought Harris in. That's when I knew I had to get out. Madison asked the obvious question. Why come forward now? Vanessa hesitated. Because I didn't sign up for a death sentence. I didn't know Harris would actually follow through. I thought Daniel was bluffing. Until I saw the video. Until I saw Lauren crying in the dark. And I realized I'd become part of something monstrous. Lauren's voice finally broke through. So this is your redemption arc? Vanessa looked up. There were no tears in her eyes, just a tired honesty that made Lauren pause. No, this is me trying to do the only good thing I have left in me. Vanessa handed over a USB drive. It's everything. Emails between Daniel and my father, wire transfers, voice recordings, and texts between me and Daniel. He bragged about how no one would believe Lauren. Said the forest plan was perfect because she never fought back. The room went silent. Madison took the drive and nodded. We'll submit this as part of our next filing. With this, Daniel goes down. But so does Gray Rise. And your father. Vanessa nodded. I know. She stood up to leave, then turned to Lauren. You didn't deserve any of this. You were collateral damage in a world full of power plays, and I'm sorry I didn't see you sooner. Lauren didn't answer. Not with words, but her silence held something deeper than rage. That night, Amir pieced together the final timeline. It all made sense now. Gray Rise had been eyeing Lauren's company for years. The moment she became vulnerable, they moved. Vanessa was planted. Daniel, already weak and insecure, fell for the validation she offered. When Lauren didn't break, they escalated. And when Daniel failed to follow through fully, Harris was there to clean it up. But what none of them expected was Noah. Noah's unexpected appearance had disrupted everything. His presence had been the only variable no one accounted for. He had flipped the script, and now so had Vanessa. Madison contacted the district attorney. With Vanessa's confession, the case expanded. No longer just a domestic abuse case, but a conspiracy charge involving corporate sabotage and attempted homicide. Lauren sat quietly in the kitchen of Noah's cabin, trying to absorb it all. He poured her a cup of tea. I know it's a lot, he said. She nodded. I spent so long thinking I was weak, but now I realize I was surviving something much bigger than I knew. Noah smiled. And you didn't just survive. You outlasted them. You outshined them. She looked at him. You saved me. He shook his head. You saved yourself. I just showed up. Lauren reached for his hand. I don't know what happens next, but I want to find out, and I want to do it with you. For the first time in months, her voice didn't tremble. The verdict and the beginning. 6 months had passed since the forest, since the betrayal, since the moment Lauren Carter's life unraveled under the weight of a lie so cruel it nearly destroyed her. But she had rebuilt, piece by piece, word by word, choice by choice. And now, she sat in a federal courtroom, her hands clasped tightly together, heart thudding in her chest. To her left was Noah, a steady, grounding presence. To her right, Madison Birch, in full armor, professional, unshakable. Across the room sat Daniel. He was no longer smug, no longer the polished, charming man who once posed beside her for glossy magazine features and awards ceremonies. His suit hung awkwardly, his posture tense. The mask had fallen. Beneath it was a man stripped of power, reputation, and legacy. The judge called for silence as the jury filed in. One by one, they took their seats. Lauren closed her eyes for a moment. She didn't need vengeance. She wasn't here for a show. She just wanted it to be over, for justice to be heard, not shouted, not broadcast, but simply acknowledged. Has the jury reached a verdict? The judge asked. The foreperson stood. We have, Your Honor. The courtroom held its breath. On the charge of conspiracy to commit financial fraud, guilty. On the charge of unlawful transfer of business assets, guilty. On the charge of attempted abandonment with intent to cause harm, guilty. On the charge of conspiracy to commit homicide, guilty. A stunned silence followed, then whispers. Daniel slumped back. Lauren didn't move. She just breathed. Not relief, not joy, just stillness. The storm was over. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Lauren and her team exited through the side, slipping into the waiting van. The silence in the vehicle felt almost sacred. In the back seat, Noah reached over and took her hand. You did it, he whispered. Lauren looked out the window, her gaze soft but strong. No, we did it. 2 weeks later, Lauren stood at the front of a sunlit gallery space in the heart of Boston. Beside her hung a sign that read, Reframe Studio, Design with Empathy, Architecture with Purpose. The crowd that filled the gallery was not made up of celebrities or investors. It was filled with survivors, advocates, volunteers, people who had seen darkness and chosen to create light from it. Lauren took the mic, her wheelchair framed by soft, natural light. I once believed that strength meant walking through pain without showing it, but I've learned that real strength is showing up anyway, even when you can't stand, even when you're broken, even when the people you love the most leave you behind. She looked out at the room. This studio isn't about design. It's about dignity. It's about rebuilding spaces and lives that the world tried to discard. And it's about proving that survival is not the end of your story. It's the beginning. Applause rose. Not polite, but fierce, honest, raw. In the crowd, Noah leaned against the back wall, pride written in every inch of his quiet expression. He'd taken a job as the studio's community coordinator, not for the salary, but for the mission, for her. As people mingled, he walked up behind her. So, he said, smiling, you're officially the bravest person I know. She smiled back. That's funny. I was just about to say the same about you. Then, without warning, Lauren took out a small, weathered piece of wood from her bag. It looked like it had once been part of an old tree stump, carved with initials, L plus D. I found this in the forest, she said, handing it to him. Right before you found me. I almost threw it away, but I didn't. Noah held the wood carefully. Why? Because I knew one day it would remind me that even the deepest roots can rot. But the forest keeps growing. She paused, then smiled softly. And sometimes, new trees grow where the old ones fell. Weeks later, Daniel was sentenced to 32 years in prison, without parole. His empire dissolved, his name erased from the companies he tried to steal. Vanessa, who had testified in full, was sentenced to a lighter term, 3 years, followed by mandatory advocacy work in abuse prevention. She had accepted it without protest. Her final words to Lauren, before being taken away, were, I was raised to believe people were assets. You taught me they're not. They're stories. I'm sorry I tried to rewrite yours. Lauren didn't forgive her, but she understood. And sometimes that was enough. Noah and Lauren bought a small farmhouse an hour outside the city, with wide doorways, ramps, and a big, messy garden. They didn't rush into marriage. There were no grand declarations, no perfect romance, but there was kindness, respect, peace, and over time, laughter. Lauren taught design classes part-time. Noah took in veterans who needed transition housing. They hosted community dinners every Sunday. No rules, no RSVPs, just warmth and welcome. One autumn evening, as leaves began to fall like memory, Lauren sat beside the fire with Noah. You know, she said, sipping tea, there's something strange I've been thinking about. What's that? If Daniel had never done what he did, if I had never ended up in that forest, I never would have found this life. Noah looked at her gently. You think it was meant to happen? She shook her head. No, I don't think pain is ever meant to happen. But I do believe in redemption. I believe that what people mean for destruction can sometimes be the soil for something beautiful. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and maybe that's enough. As the camera slowly pans out, we see them there. Two people, both broken once, both rebuilt, sitting quietly beneath the stars. No medals, no titles, just healing, just love. And the voiceover ends with a simple, resonant message. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most teach you the value of those who show up, stay, and never let go. Don't let betrayal be your ending. Let it be the turning point toward the life you actually deserve. Lauren's journey reminds us that even when you've been abandoned in the darkest place, someone, somewhere, is still willing to carry you back to the light. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a like. It helps more people see stories that matter. And if you believe in the power of healing, redemption, and second chances, hit follow to join us for more true inspired family stories that stay with you long after the video ends. What would you do if you were in Lauren's place? Drop a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts.